So it's time for byte 14 of our Python game, and it's getting so cool. Oh my god! Here's what we're going to do today. Do you know when you watch like crime detective movies where they are always with a pad, like writing, when they do interviews or when they have an idea? We're actually going to create the same for our game. For one reason, when I was playing the game using Power BI to query the database, I found that I always forgot what was the name of the street or what was the license plate or what was. So it was quite annoying to have to go back and forth. So what we're going to do for our players is we're going to create a notepad, digital notepad, so they can write whatever clues they want. And we're going to present the clues that they write all the time when they are querying the data set so they can actually do faster queries. And for that, we actually need to keep a track of who is playing because we don't want people to see each other's notes. It would be like too messy. So what we're going to do in this byte is we're going to create a user table, and we are going to make sure that that user is unique while they're playing. They won't be able to log in and log out to the game, so they have to play the game at once. But while they're playing it, they will only see their notes and nobody else's. Okay? So let's get started. Okay, so if you remember, by 13, we split the code into modules. We couldn't have done it at a better time. I'm ahead of you, and it's been so good to have it separated. So make sure that you're on byte 13. You should have the assets, the modules, and the main.py file. I've opened the main.py file, and we're going to run it, so you remember where we left off. We're going to do python.main.py to run it. Do you accept the challenge? Yes. Here, what is your name? We need to validate. We need to make sure that the user does not exist so they don't take over each other's notes or see each other's notes, okay? So now you can put anything that you want. If there's multiple players running, they could use the same name and it would be an absolute nightmare. So another thing that we're going to do is for testing, we're going to comment out all the matplotlib creations so we have faster testing. Otherwise, we would have to wait for those things to pop up, close them. So we don't want that. But so we can, that we need, the database initiation, we need to have it. We don't need that. We don't need that. Again, we're just commenting out now, but obviously we will change that afterwards. So save it. And to be able to do what we want to do, we need to first create a table in our database called players. Then we need to, when the user comes in here and ask what is the name, we need to take the name and go and ask the users table if that name exists. If it exists, if you come back and say, hey, sorry, that username exists, you cannot have it anymore. If it doesn't, we allow for it to happen, right? So we're going to do one thing. We're going to, on the modules, other actions, now it's not going to be what is your name, but it's going to be pick a username instead. Pick a username. So it says, if I select the challenge yes, then participant name, you ask, pick it, would you like to, or please pick a username to play. And then here is where we need to do the actual validation. So this is how the validation will work. First, we need to do a while true. There we need to, so while true, participant name asks the question, and then we're going to do an if statement here that we say if the player name is unique, then print hello, welcome, blah, 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 and then break the loop, so get out of this loop. Otherwise, here we need to write, I haven't written it yet, yeah? Otherwise, wait. It should be like that. Else, we need to do print. We're going to have a new, and then say, let me just copy it, no point in you watch me type it. So it says, unfortunately, the username is taken, please choose another one. And then here we do continue. It means, if you remember from our previous lessons, it means go back here to participant name and ask it again. Okay? So what is missing for us is this part. Like, how do we check? So here is where we check if username is taken. Okay? So first things first, we need to create the users table. We don't have it yet. One thing that I've been doing that I find it works very well for me, I'm not sure you can do it differently, obviously, but is to create the code using Python, Jupyter, to create the code using Jupyter nodes, and then copy paste the code into the different modules or the main py or whatever it is, because it allows me for faster testing. So I'm going to continue doing that, but please note that you don't have to. You can go and write into .py directly if you want to, and then test it with the command line, okay? I just find it quicker to just spin a new notebook. This is going to be byte 14. And then the first thing that we need to do is to create the database, right? So to create a database, I have actually added in here database actions. We're going to do a ton of database actions, you'll see. And there are the way to create a database. I'm going to show you how it is done. So get info, blah, blah, blah. Here we're going to add the created table. So this is how it works. It's actually quite easy. So you have execute, cursor execute. The cursor is, let me do another thing. Something that I did for my main game is the connection to the database is going to get used by all the functions. So we need to do that. We're going to, up to now, we have done the connection and then gone directly to pandas. Now we're going to work on SQLite. So we're going to do the queries using SQLite and then use pandas just for presentation. So when you are actually doing work on SQLite, you need, or any SQL database, you need to initiate the work with cursor equal con, the connection cursor. So this little bit of code allows you to execute queries, insert data, delete data. And this cursor here is what you see here, the cursor in there, right? So it's saying, okay, get to the connection mode and do execute, delete, insert, select, whatever it is. So this is how it works to create a new table in SQL. So the function is going to be called create table. It's going to be table name. This is the name that you want to give the table. Ours will be players. And then you have this cur execute. Cur is the cur of up there. And then you say create table, table name. And then here you put the columns that you want the action to generate. So in this case, we're going to have a player ID. And then we're going to have a player name. And the player ID is going to auto-increment, so it's going to generate itself for each entry, and then the player name is going to be text. So that's all we need. So we're going to save these, and then we're going to go to our Jupyter nodes, and we're going to call this to create the table. So we're going to go in there, put it there, and now table name is going to be players, right? So if you execute these, oh, sorry, we need to, obviously, we need to call in our import modules, right? Otherwise, how are we going to do anything? So we need to be able to access the module. So import, and then this is going to be db dot. There you go. Now we're going to read the table, the database, to see that we actually got everything. So in here, get all tables. So this function will get us all the tables that we have. You have to put db in the front. Yes, you need to always execute the connect to the database, always, otherwise it won't work. So you put it in there, those things need to happen always first, there, and then these now should read our table. Oh, but I don't want the tables like that. Wait. I want to have tables name only. So that's not what I want. I just want to have the table name. And here we have our players table. Now, do you see this SQL little sequence? That is a table that apparently SQL needs to be able to do the auto increment, so don't worry about it. Just leave it as is. Another thing that we want to do is to be able to read the contents of a data or of a table. So we do not have yet a function for that. So we're going to create that. So I'm going to copy it there, and don't worry about that. I will tell you in a second what that does. But the way to read, you do, we're doing it here with pandas because we're going to present the table and it's a lot easier to present it with pandas. So we're going to read the content of the table, whatever table we put in here, with select everything, all the columns from, and then we're going to Jupyter nodes and a lot of other display places, they actually, instead of presenting the entire table, they tend to remove rows, remove columns, and put, so it summarizes the tables, and we don't want that. We want to present everything to the user. So we're going to say, in our case, our tables are not wide particularly, but they're more like, they're not long, but they're wide. So we're going to tell pandas that, hey, display all the columns. And then we're going to make that as a global variable so we can access this through the game. And now that we have, let me save it, a get data, we're going to go here, reset, where every time that you do a change in the module, you need to reload it in memory. So reset, play. We don't need to create the database, the table anymore. For now, we're going to create all the tables in the future. This we can run anyway, and then we're going to do, and instead of hard coding that all the time, we're going to put here players. Rerun that, and then we can run it like this. And then the table data is the one that actually show us. And that's why I want to show you this. If you want, just let me show you. If you put only table data, the variable that shows the content, well, in this case, there are two columns, it's not a problem. But if you add head, this allows how many rows you want to have. And to string, it just beautifies it a little. Now we don't have any rows, so it's not going to show anything. But soon enough it will, okay? Okay, so now we have the player name table. It is empty, so what we need to do now is when we're here. So the player enters our username, and then we need to check if the username is available in the database. If it is not available, then we will put it into the database. If it is, we will ask to put it again. So we need to, when the user or the player enters the name, is stored in a participant name variable. So we're going to simulate what's going to happen, then we will use the actual variable. For now, we're going to say, let's check if Sherlock is in our database. So we have the participant name. We need to see for player in participant name. Then we're going to query the database to see if the user is in there. So we're going to do, I'm going to copy it because it will take me for too long to write, but what basically you're doing is select is query the database. Player name is the column that we want to query from table players, where player name is equal to participant name. The participant name is the variable that will get stored when we're asking the user to enter the name, this participant name, okay? And then we're going to fetch the unique ones with these, and then we're going to print it. I'm going to show you what this does. Sorry. So for these to work, you need to add this temporarily. We're going to delete it later, but because we are not saving this statement into the database action yet, we need to have a cursor here too, but we will get rid of it very, very soon. So we're going to print it, and it says, no, Sherlock is not there. It's returning none all the time. So now that we know what it returns when it doesn't find it, we can do if data is none, that means the player name is not available in our database, then we're going to enter it. So instead of select, we're going to insert into players the player name, participant name. Now, the reason why we're doing this syntax is because there's something called SQL injection attacks, which basically people can write anything in there and kill your database or your program and things like that. So this apparently prevents, the question mark prevents those attacks from happening. I'm still checking out to see if that is really true, but for now, that's what I've got. Okay, so what this basically says is it goes and takes the player name, checks it in the database. If it doesn't find it, it will put it in. Otherwise, doesn't need to do anything else because our main loop is going to take care of it. So let's see if this actually does that. So we're going to enter it. And we query these, and you can see that we have a Sherlock. There is a 2 because I've done it already, but otherwise for you it will be Sherlock 1. So cool. If we would run it again, it doesn't do anything because it's already there. So this thing doesn't do anything at all. Okay, so the last thing that we need to do is to commit the insert into the database. And you do it with commit. And now that we have the logic of our function, we're going to convert it into a function. So we go to, this is a database action, so I'm going to put it in here. Def player is unique, and then paste all that. It didn't paste correctly, right? So I don't want to print that we're going to get rid of. And this is got to go there. So just to recap, well, there are a few things that we need to do. We need to import the other actions modules in here. You can see here, you need to import it to be able to access the participant name. And you need to tell Python that that variable comes from the other actions module, is not from this .py file. So put other onto the variable name. If you remember, this is this as we define the module. And so it goes and picks the participant name. It searches on the database. If it doesn't find it, it puts it into the database, And then we're going to do one last thing, which is return true. The reason why I'm going to do this is because I want to have an if statement that will capture if it's true. You'll see. So save, go into other actions. Now we're going to use database actions into the other actions. So you need to import the DB action in here. And in here we need to put this one, right? Because that's what we're going to check. We're going to check if player is unique and player is from database module, going in database module to find that function. So if the player is unique, if it's true, that's what I'm putting true there. If it's true, then save it into the database and say hello, welcome. If it's not, say, sorry, you need to pick a unique name, go back here. Fingers crossed it works, save it. And no, not there. We're gonna go to the terminal, Python main, cross our fingers. Yes, I wanna play. And we don't have any name yet, so let's put Ruth. And then it will die because we have killed everything else. Let's run it again and try to use Ruth again. Yes, Ruth, and it says, sorry, it's taken. If we would go to the database now and run it, Ruth should be there. How cool. This is so cool. Oh my God. Okay, so the next things that we're going to do is to create the notepad. So the user will be able to take notes as he's finding clues, and he will be able to, we will show it to the user all the time because they are going to need it everywhere. So yeah, that on Byte 15. I'll see you then.